Hey everybody, welcome back to Reason for Truth. Host Stephen Garofalo. Reason for Truth. Truth comes first. Reasons come last. Always and constantly learning. Stop learning, stop teaching. Stop teaching well, so we're constantly learning. Listen, we talked the last time a little about Matthew 25. We were looking at the parable of the talents. I want to pick it up today, kind of continue the conversation. But I thought it was interesting. There's always the role of risk and initiative. Notice how there was, remember, one servant was given 1 talent, the other 2, the other 5. The one with 2 made 4, the one with 5 made 10, and the one with 1 dug a hole in the ground, hit it, didn't even put it in the bank. Master came back, could at least put it in the bank, made interest, but no. And what'd he say? That wicked, he's called him slothful, wicked, told him he's not entering into the joy of the Lord, and basically said send him out to Sheol, to hell, in a way. Place where it'd be wailing and gnashing of teeth. That's not a good description in the Bible. You haven't figured that out yet. But it's interesting. We were looking at the one who did nothing. And so what the question is, what is the role of risk and initiative? Being a faithful disciple in the time of the master's extended absence. We know the Lord's going to return. We're part of the extended absence. We're in that space. The question is, what is risk and what is initiative? So we have to take risk, right? Because we have to talk about this in my Sunday school by ALG at Calvary. At the end of the day, there's a risk. There's a risk of failure, but there's also a risk of success, and some people don't like that. What happens if I fail at the ALG? It really goes badly. Okay. What about if there's also the fear. One gentleman in the class said there's fear. Yeah, the fear of risk, right? That plays it. But there's also fear of success. What as if the class blows up? There's 70, 80 people, right? Well, then I've got to manage all that. I've got a lot on my plate. We'll figure that out. The Lord will provide the people to come besides. Just we're already putting that in place now. And then there's initiative. The initiative is just putting fire under your feet there to say. A lot of times you can't make people have motivation. Taking initiative means just that. Taking initiative to share the Lord, serve in a ministry, all these things. We have to take initiative. In other words, you just don't wake up and I think a lot of people think, well, God is going to do something for me. Let him just deliver it. I have people want to be part of Reason for Truth, and I ask them what they kind of want from Reason for Truth, and more often than not, they don't have an answer. Mainly because they just want to hitch their wagon and get speaking engagements, and just because they're important, because they have some letters behind their name. I've got some letters too, at least on a master's level, but I don't expect anybody to send me out. I think that's appalling to just expect that out of somebody. I think it gets to the point of usury. Still, listen, get up, have some initiative. If you're not, well, do it yourself. You'll do it yourself because you want it for yourself. But don't ask to be part of any organization or any, listen, if you want to be part of God's, work, you're going to have initiative, and you're going to have to give God the glory because he's the one who makes all things, right? So early in Jesus' ministry, he had compassion on the people. Why? Because they were like sheep without shepherd. We're often like that, are we not? We're people sometimes without direction. We go to the Word. Word will give us all the direction we need. And then if you pray, the Holy Spirit's going to give you direction, okay? In the parable of the sheep and the goats, what new insight can you think you could gain about Jesus as the shepherd? That'll give us a little idea of who we're, what is God doing? How does he think? How does he operate? Okay, you can go read that on your own. But let me just recap. Each according to which he was given, okay, in terms of one's talents. The master entrusted his servants with considerable amounts of money for that day. You go back and reread what a talent was worth. It was worth a lot, right? Many denariuses, right? Many denarii. Those amounts were commensurate to each man's abilities, though. So in other words, God's not going to call you to do a 10-talent job and have only given you 2 talents. It doesn't work that way. He's going to give you 2 talents. He wants you to work hard with those 2. And remember, you go good, he'll probably give you 4 or even more. Okay? What is a talent again? It's ability. It's also opportunities to use that ability to serve him. It's a simple equation. And then you had the 2 faithful servants, remember, the ones that didn't dig a hole and put it in, and they were awarded. Awarded for what? Their faithfulness. first and fourth. They're awarded financially with additional wealth and management of that wealth, and awarded with additional responsibilities, and awarded with sharing what? The best of all, verses 20 to 23, to sharing in the master's joy. That is the best part. You can't buy that, man. There's no gold and silver. There's no coin that can buy that. That has to do with the heart issue of wanting to serve the Lord and then doing it, taking the initiative. But listen, he reasoned that the master might be not coming back at all. That was the one wicked one. He's not coming back. Or the Lord's, I don't know. He's never said, get apathy. I'm not going to do anything with this thing. Dig a hole, put it on, give it to him when he comes back. But if he did, return every talent. At least if he would have put in the bank, right, he would have gotten interest with no loss incurred. But he did. It was a loss. It was a loss. He came back negative because at the very least he could have stuck it in the bank, you see. So it's not like he just gave what he was given. No. So if you don't do anything with it, it's a loss because it's a negative. It's not even Steven. That's my name. But an omission to be obedient is a loss of opportunity to serve the Lord, and a loss in obedience to the Lord, and then a loss to really bless others. Isn't that pretty sad? So the wicked servant, he proved to be a worthless man, a worthless servant. Okay? The result, the talent was taken away from him. What he was given to the one who had taken 5 and made 10. The opportunity to serve the master was gone, but he was pronounced eternally separated from him. That means he went to hell. Okay? Doesn't mean if I'm not serving the Lord properly, am I going to hell? No. But the point is, if you're really saved, you're going to want to serve him in some capacity, however big, however small. But, that's just the truth. 2 servants received the same award, by the way. The one with 2 and the one with 5, even though 2 went to 4, 5 went to 10, they got the same exact reward. First 2 servants received the exact same thing, even though the dollar amounts are different. For what? For their shared faithfulness, right? So the smallest task in God's work may receive a great reward if we're faithful in performing it. Matthew 10:42, okay? But the unprofitable servant, he was one that's the person who fails to be faithful with what is given, the tasks given to him by the master. So this servant will not share in those rewards, sad enough. So question for you today is the spiritual presence of Christ is not the same as the physical presence. So what spiritual benefit comes from his physical absence? Think about that. Let you answer that. And Jesus is preparing for his disciples, and I'd say for you and I today, his servants, for his depending departure. But he wants the disciples to know that he holds them accountable. That's the part we are at, for how they conduct themselves in his absence. We're in that group now, all right? We're not preparing for, his impending departure because he's departed already. So anyways, the 3 parables that you find in Matthew 25, parable of the virgins, 25, 1 to 13, parable of the talents, verses 14 to 31, and judgment of the Gentiles, 31 to 46. It's funny how they all fit together. We're not going to get into that today, but I do want to end with, so what? What's the point, Steve? So what is well done, good and faithful servant? We don't want to miss that blessing. None of us do. Every Christian wants to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. So let's be good and faithful servants of what God has trusted you with. Me too. We all have it. And listen, if I've got 10 talents, I got a lot more to do, right? Than the 2. But the 2 has a lot because he's got to focus on getting that 2 to 4. So no one is not greater than the other. Nope. We're all just servants. We're all equally great with what God has given us if we all take it serious and serve God and do well with what he's given us. So the first 2 servants, remember, received the same reward even though they were different amount of talents. And the reward was based on what? Faithfulness, not the size or amount of those responsibilities. Same is true of you and me. So the smallest task in God's work may receive a great reward if we're faithful in performing it. Matthew 10:42. So anyways, I would say that I may get into, how you discover your gifts. There's Shape out there. There's a number of other programs that can help you discover your gifts. But I want to challenge you to that. Listen, your ministry, and that could be anything. Working in a child's ministry, could be working in the kitchen. But your ministry will be most effective in fulfilling and fulfilling to you personally when you were using your gifts and abilities. It's true. If God wired you certain ways, given you talents, spiritual gifts, very fulfilling. You're going to be like, this is awesome. That's why people come into the Christian world. They almost don't want to work. They just want to go serve and do things because that's the way God wired us. He didn't really wire us to work 12 hours a day making tons of money, even though, whatever, even if you're using it for God's glory, which is a good thing. He's, for most of us, he's given us gifts and abilities to use for his glory differently. So the area of your heart's desires in a way that best expresses your personality and experience mixed with your abilities and your spiritual gifts, boom, that's where it's at. So think about that. Read through the parable. Think about it. Pray for God. Ask him, make clear your abilities. And listen, make sure and your calling and your spiritual gifts. And then, it's up to you. God's not going to give you the initiative. You've got to take the initiative. He can give you the initiative. You've got to take those opportunities that he gives you. Guess what? It's just like listen, you could have all the money in the world. You could have 100 big giant bars of gold and say, man, I'm rich. And you stick them in a hole in the ground. And guess what? They're no good. It's just metal in the ground. Matter of fact, that's where it came from. That's where you end up sticking it. But if you go ahead and use those things, and I'm not talking about gold bars, I'm talking about abilities, skills, and just making yourself available to God. You'd be surprised he may use you in ways, and then he'll double your talents. But don't forget, you're sending that ahead. But you're also in the process of sending them ahead. You're getting the blessing of God working through you, right? Into his presence. And entering, what would Matthew say? Entering into the joy of the Lord. That's where it's at. So hope you'll do it. And listen, I hope this has encouraged you. Hope it's motivated you. Let's get out there and change our world. Jesus turned the world right side up, man. With a small group of men, we can change the world. Just think about how many of us are watching this or listening to this now. That's my encouragement and my challenge to you. So God's blessings to you. Let's think about that. We're going to get better equipped. Go to equippedacademy.com. Check out some of those courses there. And then join me in my community. Just go on there. It's free. There is a paywall for getting the podcast a couple, 3 days early on audio. But the rest of it is exclusive content at no cost. You do that at StephenGarofalo.com. It's with an N, StephenGarofalo.com. God's blessings to you. Stay cool. Use your talents. Bask in the Lord as you're serving him. Enter into the joy of the Lord. And remember, I'm your host, Stephen Garofalo, and this is your Reason for Truth for today.